And I think we're going to be talking about Yemen and other issues next week. But at the moment, there are, and I don't think anybody, I haven't seen anybody say anything other or even contradict the idea that there are over 100,000 Russian troops that have amassed on the border of Ukraine. And supposedly there may be, more being added. And my understanding is that the ground gets harder as it gets colder in February, and that is the optimal time for a ground invasion would come over the course of the next 3 or 4 weeks. The U.S. has now deployed troops, I think, to places like Estonia. Not many.
Can I just ask a really stupid question? Why does the ground being harder have anything to do with it?
You got heavy equipment.
Okay,
you've got
so
tanks. You've got
gotcha.
Personnel transport. Maybe you want to land planes in certain areas. You want the ground to be hard. Makes it much easier. And this is a reality. Nobody knows whether Putin finds it in his interest to invade Ukraine. Regardless of who you perceive Ukraine to be, I don't think there's anybody who wants civilian deaths in a war. You shouldn't. You should want there to not be a war. And I believe that Russia has reason to be concerned about Ukraine going into NATO. And I believe it was a mistake for George W. Bush to promise Ukraine that they could have membership into NATO on behalf of the United States of America. And I also believe that from president to president, for the most part, the U.S., particularly in the context of foreign policy, should show the world that there's some measure of consistency. Now, I obviously feel consistency is not as important when you are changing policy to what I consider to be better. But broadly speaking, when we enter treaties or agreements, I think it's better for the United States to maintain those. But I, for one, frankly, think that NATO should begin to wrap things up a little bit. It may be in a long process, and maybe different ways of doing that. And if Joe Biden can figure out a way of sort of starting to step back from that promise, that would be good. So, there is legitimate Russian concerns here, but there's nothing urgent that's going on. NATO admission is not imminent. And so I think, in my sense, is the Biden administration, they can't possibly want a Russian incursion into Ukraine, and they can't possibly want to have a conflict with Russia. There may be interests that are, oil interests that are maybe don't want certain pipelines to go through, or Europe to become dependent on Russian energy, et cetera, et cetera. So here is, and a lot's been made of this exchange. AP writer Matt Lee and State Department Press Secretary Ned Price. I don't think Ned Price is doing the administration any favors here. But I also don't think that this claim made by the United States is as problematic as some seem to think it is. Play this clip.
Quite a mouthful there. So you said actions such as these suggest otherwise. Suggest meaning. Pause
it for 1 second. I should just say, just to set this up, the United States, via Ned Price, I think, announces that they have, I don't know, some type of video evidence, or they claim that videos were being made.
Intelligence that a video might be produced.
Said a video might be produced, which essentially shows a false flag operation in Ukraine. It sounds a little fantastical to me, like other claims of false flags have at times, but, remember the Maine. And it's not just the Maine, the Gulf of Tonkin. I mean, we've certainly done it. I wouldn't put it past anybody else to do it. And they make the claim. Do they offer any evidence that there's a video being made? The answer is no.
Right. And this is the same reporter, I believe, that we played yesterday, right? Matt Lee, who consistently gets into these spars from the AP with Ned Price. Anyway, but
I'm not convinced that either one of them is in the right here. But go ahead.
Quite a mouthful there. So you said actions such as these suggest otherwise. Suggest meaning that they suggest they're not interested in talks and they're going to go ahead with some kind of what action are you talking about?
One, the actions I've just pointed to. The fact that Russia continues to engage in disinformation campaigns.
You made an allegation that they might do that. Have they actually done it?
What we know, Matt, is what I have just said, that they have engaged in this activity, in this planning activity. But let me because obviously this is not the first time we've made these reports public. You'll remember that just a few weeks ago.
I'm sorry, made what report public?
If you'll let me finish, I will tell you what report we made public. We told you a few weeks ago that we have information indicating Russia also has already prepositioned a group of operatives to conduct a false flag operation in eastern Ukraine. So that, Matt, to your question, is an action that Russia has already taken.
It's an action that you say that they have taken, but you have shown no evidence to confirm that. And I'm going to get to the next question here, which is, what is the evidence that they play? I mean, this is like crisis actors, really. This is like Alex Jones territory you're getting into now. What evidence do you have to support the idea that there is some propaganda film in the making?
Matt, this is derived from information known to the U.S. government, intelligence information that we have declassified. I think you know.
Okay, well, where is it? Where is this information?
It is intelligence information that we have declassified.
Well, where is it? Where's the declassified information?
I just delivered it.
No, you made a series of allegations and statements.
Would you like us to print out the topper? Because you will see a transcript of this briefing that you can print out for yourself.
That's not evidence, Ned. That's you saying it. That's not evidence. I'm sorry.
What would you like, Matt?
I would like to see some proof that you can show that
Matt, you have been
that shows that the Russians are doing this. Ned, I've been doing this for a long time.
I know, that was my point. You have been doing this for quite a while. You know that when we declassify intelligence information, we do so in a means we do so with an eye to protecting sources and methods.
Is not going to fall. I remember a lot of things. So where is the declassified information other than you coming out here and saying?
Matt, I'm sorry you don't like the format, but we have declassified.
It's not the format; it's the content.
I'm sorry you don't like the content. I'm sorry you are doubting the information that is in the possession of the U.S. government.
No,
what I'm telling you is that this is information that's available to us. We are making it available to you in order for a couple reasons. One is to attempt to deter the Russians from going ahead with this activity.
What's your
okay?
Why are you skeptical of what Matt Lee's saying there?
Okay, I'm not skeptical of what Matt Lee's saying there in terms of like they have provided no evidence for this claim whatsoever, and there's without a doubt, and he should be skeptical of the claim. But if I'm the Ned Price, my answer would be fine. Be skeptical. We cannot provide you evidence of what we know because we don't want to compromise our sources. But it is fine for you to be skeptical of it. We are only informing the public of what we know, so that in the event that something like that happens, it cannot be used as a pretext for war. And if it doesn't happen, then fine. And I mean, in that regard, what I find ridiculous is that there's some expectation that people should believe it necessarily because it's been released by the U.S. government.
Right.
I agree. At the same time, in terms of someone who doesn't want to see any war, they should have just said, we're releasing this information. We cannot substantiate it because of, you could say, we can't substantiate it because it's, it's more than a rumor, but we can't provide the evidence without compromising our resources. So if people are skeptical about it, that's fine. That's okay. We just want to put it out there because we're aware of this. And so if you see something like this that it develops, understand that it's not a spontaneous thing that's happened, that we're aware of plans that have been in the process, and mission accomplished.
But to me, the fact that he's not being more specific about the content means that there is not substantial evidence for it.
Well, I'll take.
But here's the thing. I don't care because it's not an actionable claim. There's nothing. If you have proof or no proof that the Russians are making a video about something that doesn't happen, that you can't go to war over that.
I agree.
And so it's not an actionable claim. So as far as I'm concerned, this is a failure on the State Department to just come out and instead of having to sort of like tell people, you got to believe us because we have it's just simply say like, we're just interested in putting down the marker. So if this happens, understand it's not a legitimate reason for Russia to invade.
Yeah.
And that's all you need to do.
I think there's that, and I will take some exception to the format, though, which is that when Price says this is information in the custody of the United States government, why is it only the United States government? Why isn't it also France or Germany maybe leading with this info? Like, I think it's like that stuff. Our sources, methods, intelligence does not have the credibility to do this on its own.
Well, and that's what Lee understands. He's been doing this for decades, and so this is like the. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, I mean that is the underbelly of like his skepticism here is because I believe Lee was I think he was questioning the Bush administration on a lot of this kind of stuff.
Oh yeah, no, I mean I think it's perfectly legitimate for reporters to say like where's the evidence here. I just think that like the State Department should have had their shit together better and say we can't provide you evidence, and it's frankly. It's not an actionable claim.
Right. If it's not used for pretext for sanctions or U.S. invasion.
Without
right?
a doubt. You can't sanction somebody because they're making videos.
Right.
Like, are you kidding me? Like, all right, continue with the deterrence because he says go back just a little bit and finish and keep going with this clip because this is what they should have led with. We are announcing this not because we can prove it, not because we're in a position to substantiate it, but rather we announce it because we have this information.
I don't think. Do they have the information though, Sam? Like, do they have the information?
I think
this just seems like this bullshit about Russian disinformation.
Well, but I mean, they're being pretty specific about what they've.
I don't know.
Released.
I mean,
well, they said. I mean, if you look at the New York Times story, it says. I mean, this is what. This is a claim that you couldn't. Like I say, it's not actionable. You can't have sanctions because they're making a fake video.
I mean, I'll just take it back to the Germany. My problem with this whole thing is America seems more gung ho about this than the actual Europeans do. And so, like, I think there's certain like Germany's banned RT recently after being more hesitant to like arm Ukraine than the states were. And I think like there could be something expected from a propaganda warfare from Russia. I think that's not beyond the realm of possibility.
I agree, but I mean,
I think the problem is like the United States and the Western intelligence, that's the Brits. I'm sorry, that dog doesn't hunt.
All right, so the plan, which the United States hopes to spoil by making public, involves staging and filming a fabricated attack by the Ukrainian military, either on Russian territory against Russian-speaking people in eastern Ukraine. Russia, the official said, intended to use the video to accuse Ukraine of genocide against Russian-speaking people. It would then use the outrage of the video to justify an attack or have separatist leaders in the Donbas region of eastern Ukraine invite a Russian intervention. Officials would not release any direct evidence of the plan or specify how they learned of it, saying so would compromise source and methods. But so the plan that they're talking about here is the video was intended to be elaborate, officials said, with plans for graphic images of the staged corpse-strewn aftermath of an explosion and footage of destroyed locations. They said the video was also set to include fake Ukrainian military equipment, Turkish-made drones, and actors playing Russian-speaking mourners. Now, I don't know if this is...
That is specific, but...
it's fairly specific, and the value of this, to me... I don't know how anybody could think that, like, oh, we've made this claim, therefore we're going to sanction Russia, or therefore we're going to invade, provide more weapons for Ukraine. No, it is a way of basically saying that if a video like this comes out, it should be treated with skepticism. And by getting that information out there, even if it is like they have 3% assuredness about it, in my mind, if you're interested in there not being a war and people not being killed by weapons, this is a good thing to put out there. You just need to be frank and say, we cannot validate this claim. It is not actionable on our part. We are releasing it as a deterrent. And go back just a little bit.
I don't.
Let's listen to how he says.
Are they releasing it as a deterrent?
Well, that's the last line he says. Go back just about 20 seconds before you ended there.
I remember a lot of things. So where is the declassified information other than you coming out here and saying,
Matt, I'm sorry you don't like the format, but we have declassified.
It's not the format; it's the content.
I'm sorry you don't like the content. I'm sorry you are doubting the information that is in the possession of the U.S. government.
No,
what I'm telling you is that this is information that's available to us. We are making it available to you in order for a couple reasons. One is to attempt to deter the Russians from going ahead with this activity. Two, in the event we're not able to do that, in the event the Russians do go ahead with this, to make it clear as day, to lay bare the fact that this has always been an attempt on the part of the Russian Federation to fabricate a pretext.
Yeah, but you don't have any evidence to back it up other than what you're saying. It's like you're saying, we think we have information.
You see, this is the thing where prices say, like, that's fine because it's deterrent. We are using this as a deterrent, period. And that is, we hope that it deters them from creating this video. And in the event that it doesn't deter them from creating the video, we hope that it deters the world to see that video as a legitimate reason and pretext for an invasion. And I frankly think that is a good reason to come out with this information. You just got to be honest about it. And instead of making it like you don't believe us that we have it, you just say, like, it doesn't matter if you believe us if we have it.
But then the fear is that this underpins a larger effort, probably by the United States government, to discredit anything that is coming out of, like, that is maybe anti-U.S. Pro-Russian information. Then you can say,
but that video has nothing to do with the U.S.
It's one. I mean, right? I understand, but in terms of like this proxy battle that is being waged, basically, or could potentially be waged in Ukraine.
I mean, if it was something to the effect of NATO has encroached upon Russian territory. And here is a NATO, NATO military equipment in Russian territory, or in Ukraine for that matter, or that has been firing at Russia. Then I would be more skeptical of something like that, because it would give the NATO or the U.S. some type of cover story. I guess we're getting into multi-dimensional chess here, but to simply say, to come out with a story that says, like, if there is evidence of, Russian separatists fighting and Ukrainians killing Russian-speaking people in Ukraine, be very, very skeptical of it. And I, to me, the release of that information, the release of that specific information, if it has any impact, it diminishes the chances of people of a war, of an invasion, or of killing.
I hope that that's the case. If that's the case, then, like, that is the overall goal.
The theory would be like, it's like the USSR saying, hey, take a close look at anything coming out of the Gulf of Tonkin in the next few weeks, right? And I think that's good, but I also think, like,
there's a better way to do it without having to be like, how can you not trust the U.S. government?
It's got to be with
seriously.
Partners. It's because they just don't sources and methods, like, give us some of that, because they're not really releasing information. They're hinting at the information that they can't release.
And if you are, then just come clean about that. Say, look, we can't substantiate this. We're not going to substantiate it. We suspect it. We're putting a marker down.
Rather than saying we have stuff that our spies got.
You're absolutely right to want more evidence. Can't provide it at this time.
Right.
And it still has the efficacy of everything we want it to do. And that's why we're releasing it. Because there's no secret here. I mean, there's no like secret game that's going on here. They're basically saying, we saw what we think was that guy putting a couple of aces in his pocket. And so if he shows up and puts 4 aces down, that's very, very suspicious.
Right. Well, I mean, the point is just that I think that their posture of, like, the transparency that you're asking of them is incompatible with the way that they operate. And so they treat, even if we're taking the deterrent at face value and their intentions are good here in terms of, like, a broken clock being right twice a day or whatever. I mean, that then the issue is that their response is the same when they are parroting propaganda.
That's what I'm saying.
And disinformation.
I think what they're doing is actually a positive, and I think that the way that they're doing it is undercutting both what they're doing and just sort of a little bit of gas.
And given the United States' like history and it being in its lies, that I don't know if it's even possible for them to do what you're saying.
Well,
I don't even know if it's compatible.
You just come out and just say, like, it's not an actionable claim. It's not even one that we can willing to prove. Acknowledge that. And so if people want to disregard it, they can. It's out in the public now, and that's all. And its efficacy is not undermined by us putting that out. I mean, look, if every conflict from now
until... If those are their
intentions,
Sam, though, right? I mean, if those are their intentions.
But yes. But I think that if you're going to try and start a war because of a claim that somebody's making a fake video, you're on shaky ground.
But that's just one piece. No one's making the claim that would happen. That's one part.
Yeah, I guess it just seems like a not terribly nefarious thing to do unless it's used as a pretext for war. And so, I mean, in my estimation, if every government could come out and make that claim at any given point and it stops invasions and wars, and even if they're making it up, I'd be down with that. If that was the way that we could stop all wars, I would be totally down with it. And you know, I don't know why Russia feels like it would need a pretext necessarily. I mean, to whom they're trying to, you know, maybe that is an internal domestic political issue and a way to, you know, to drum up domestic support for an invasion like that. Which I imagine it is, then, you know, to undercut domestic support for a war, I think that's good. I think Russia should do the same thing, but I don't think it's necessary. I don't think there's any appetite in this country at all.
No.
To get into this conflict. It's really just sort of a high stakes negotiation that hopefully does not spin out of control.
It's just like...
I mean, this is what happens when you have an intelligence community that's blown its credibility for the entire time that I've been alive. Absolutely. And I think you got to sort of, if you're the U.S. government and State Department, then you got to acknowledge that. If you want to effectively deploy this as a deterrent, and even acknowledging, like, we cannot show you proof.
Yeah, but that would require...
And skepticism is okay. You do that, and then you still, you know, that's the way you get the story out there, because you want that story out there, because you want to undercut and block the ability of something like that to be used as a predicate to a war.
That would require like a parallel universe in which the United States did not operate in the way that it has over the past
I just
100
feel
years.
like that wouldn't have been hard to figure out. A decent spokesperson, I feel like, could
Well,
have
he
done that.
sucks.